Huh. That's so odd. It's not coming through, right? That's so weird, right? We've had a lot of issues. This is just not this one.
It's cool. We can name this issue after me.
Oh, we're live.
Oh,
I see us.
I see us too. Cool.
Oh my goodness. All right. Okay. All right. I can hear myself talk about the issues we're having. All right. Beautiful. We are here with the wonderful Shaundai, who is a senior engineer at Netflix, a tech educator extraordinaire, a public speaker on both JavaScript, TypeScript technology, more broadly, a mentor to the wider community on TikTok, on Twitter, about how to build your professional career as an engineer with fascinating insights that I think we all need to know and appreciate. I love watching Shaundai's TikToks and seeing how one goes about every aspect of being an engineer, but everything from networking to making good engineering judgments. And also, Shaundai is immersed in the, I guess, the kind of expert programming community, a contributor to TC39 that is part of the ECMA standards body. That's where JavaScript's standards and rules and approach comes from. Shaundai is based in Atlanta, is involved in a React community group as well. I think most recently spoke, or at least one of the most recent talks you gave, Shaundai, was in Paris. So traveling around the world speaking about technology, all while day-to-day a senior engineer at Netflix, and we'll hopefully delve into this because I think it's extraordinary, because it's something I tried to do and couldn't do, a self-taught software engineer, and coming from a business background, something that is not a million miles away from the path I took. And so I hope we'll have lots to talk about, and it's wonderful to be on here with you, Shaundai.
What an intro. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad and excited to be here. Excited to talk to you too.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So actually, maybe we can start with that. We talked a little bit before we started. I remember feeling some draw to software engineering, I think for many reasons, but each of us has a different path. And I personally find it kind of fascinating to hear, especially someone who was clearly thriving in your path at the time, account management and maybe sales or sales adjacent, and then doing business at, like the kind of track that I think is what many of us would think is the most just an amazing path, Northeastern, these kind of great schools, and everything seems lined up. And then is it pivot? Is it expand? How do you think about it? Maybe you can share, but like, what was so compelling about software engineering as to make that leap? It's like, it takes a lot. I certainly was not personally as far down a career path or had enough things lined up to make it hugely costly to shift. But yeah, how did you have the vision, the confidence? What drew you? What pushed you away from what you were doing? How do they join up? Like, I'd just be fascinated to hear like how that transition went for you.
Yeah, it was a big risk. So a little bit of background is that I was in sales for over 10 years, was really good at it, was always one of the top, not always, but in the later years was in the top of the sales reps in my team or at my company. So it was a safe career for me. I also, when I started to learn to code, I had a very young child. I was, he was a newborn, and I was started on maternity leave. And so I was learning to be a parent, as I was learning to code, and it didn't make sense to do something risky like that when you have not only your life and your like very comfortable cushy life, as well as this new baby child. And so I
A little kiddo
yeah,
ready
a little
to, yeah.
so impressionable. um but and I've been talking about this a lot. One of the big things for me as a parent is being able to, I want my son to see his mom being happy and fulfilled. I don't ever want him, he wasn't a planned child, but he is a very loved and like welcome part of my life, which I guess is, that's a good thing, right? As a parent, you're happy that this person
Oh my
exists.
God.
So but I want him to look at me, and I want him to look at himself and his place in my life, never as a burden or a surprise or like an accident that happened to my mom. I want him to always feel, which is exactly what he is, to feel like he brought something great and beautiful and inspirational into my life. And so the reason I'm saying that is because I was in sales, and again, it was a safe path. It was something that I knew how to do, something that I was familiar with, and had structured my life around. But if I looked further down the path of sales, like at other tracks, like if I got promoted to management or at the next level of sales rep, or if I became sales enablement person, who's kind of like trainers or uh, any sales or sales adjacent type thing, um, there was no path that I saw that I was like, wow, I would love to do that, and I would love to spend the rest of my life doing that. When but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was like, this is probably the way that most people feel about their lives, is like that you do one thing to make money and then you just go home and enjoy
Yeah.
your life at home in some other different way.
I've
I
heard that, but I've heard it put that way a few times. Like the idea that you work, yeah, it's a cliche phrase. You work to live, else
work to live.
in other
Yeah,
paths, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah, I had never even fathomed that I could love my job or do, because the things that I love to do aren't things that make money. I love to draw. I love to hang out with friends. Like, I mean, I couldn't get paid to do that. So, I mean, not well. So I never envisioned this career, but I didn't want my son to see that, because I was given all the best parts of myself to this sales job, because in sales you're always on. You, even if somebody calls you at midnight ready to buy something from you, you're going to pick up that call at midnight. So I was given all the best versions of myself to this job so that I could be happy and smiley when I was talking to my customers. And then when I came home to my son, I was just exhausted and depleted. I started to dabble in coding. There were different points along my life where I'm like, I should have known that sales was, I mean, sorry, that coding was for me. But I started to dabble in it, and I gave myself like half an hour a day to practice coding. And I was so excited about it that I would stay up until like 1 and 2 in the morning. This is after working a demanding sales job, after parenting my infant. Um, I would I would just like go on, and I was so excited about it. I would be like, "Oh my gosh, I got this font to change color." And I looked up what engineers make, because I was like, I have no idea. And I was like, "Oh, I could make money that's comparable."
wait, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I could make money comparable in sales. Not only that, so I could make the same amount of money, but I could be doing something that makes me happy and not feel as drained for
That
the
you
rest
get
of
lost in, as you say, you like get
exactly.
lost in at midnight.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and like what a difference it would make for my son to be able to see that, I don't want him to be like, oh, things are too risky, so I'm not going to take a chance and start a different career. I want him to be like, and this is true, he is the inspiration, because I want him to
Yeah,
see how exciting his mom can be, how excited his mom can be about life, how happy she can be coming home. And when I got my first job, I remember that first week and just looking at the way that he looked at me. And it was so different. Like we had, so, not that we had any bad interactions before that, but like it was just so much warmer, so much happier. There was just like it was like next level excitement in the household. So yeah, I say all that to say it was a risky thing, but it was inspired by my drive to be happy so that my son could see a happy mom. And
Could he see in you a kind of you know, a greater like comfort with the with almost uncertainty as well? I think one of the things that when we talk about like software engineering, there's not always a right answer. There's not always like you're dealing sometimes with, you know, a lot of uncertainty, and feeling that kind of comfort with change and possibility. And could he feel some of those other pieces at play with that kind of emerge as you embrace that career?
This is a really interesting question. I think because I was so equipped to deal with uncertainty because of sales, and because like half or more than half of my take home income was always just like, it was always risk and always uncertainty. The uncertainty in switching careers was a lot less than it was in sales. So if you think of my like default or my threshold for stress is like way above what a normal person's level of like ability to take care of that.
Software engineering was a calming.
Oh yeah, by far. Because yeah, think about it. Like I was selling. I graduated from undergrad in 2008. So this was my first, like this was when we had the first big recession of, well, totally. Probably maybe not. I don't know, but a big recession
of our
generation. Exactly. Of our generation. Right. So that was first. So then that was my entry to the job market. And then I was learning to code in 2020. So this is when I switched careers in 2020. Everybody was getting laid off. I was calling my customers. I had all these big deals that were supposed to like put me way over the top of what my quota was in 2020. I would call these customers and they'd be like, I don't work there anymore. I got laid off. So all of that, like I was well equipped to deal with a ton of stress. And then, yeah, by the time that I got this first engineering job, I was like, ooh, if the hardest thing that I have to deal with is like, I don't know, not centering a div. I'm making it sound more trivial than it was. But if
no, I mean that's notoriously the hardest thing.
Yeah, exactly, right.
I don't know much about coding, but like if I know one thing, that's actually a lot harder than you ever think. Right. That's a philosophical question.
I love it. See, yeah. No, I was well equipped. So I think thinking back on it, yeah, it brought just like a level of peace and stability. Like I know what's coming in. I know what my paycheck is going to look like every other week. I can consistently plan. Budgeting becomes so much easier when you're not working off of commissions. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And then it's not like I lost all the sales skills, because you asked about, was it like a pivot or an expansion?
Totally.
Yeah. So I didn't realize it at the time, but it was definitely an expansion. So my big fear was, I'm starting all over and I'm going to lose all of this career momentum. I'll lose all of the stuff that I learned, or I'll never have the opportunity to use it again. I spent all this money on degrees that I'm never going to use, which I wasn't really using anyway. But I I still use those sales skills every day, like multiple times a day, not just in work, but definitely in work. I use it in parenting. I use it in my friendships. I use it in negotiating, doing side projects and things like that. And I've gotten a lot of sales and business skills that have come in handy, making my actual work easier, but also have made it less scary to do side things, do all the other stuff that you mentioned, like creating courses. I don't shy away from the business side because that's the part that I have. This is the part that I practiced over.
And does it help also with the core engineering side as well? Like that side, that, you know.
It
the
does.
leading question. I think it does so much. But so why do people not think? What I don't. One of the things I don't understand is why do people still think that that's not what a software engineer is?
I think people get too caught up in the technical aspect of coding. And yes, of course, that is important. But I feel like at least 80% of what I do has nothing, not nothing, but it has to do with soft skills and interpersonal relationships, communication, all of the soft things that come into play when you're talking about business. So, like, sales is a career built off of soft skills. So that's something that
Totally.
I've practiced. Um, when people ask me, "Oh, how did you get a job? How did you get the job at Netflix? How did you get into engineering in the first place? Or how did you get signed up to do different conference talks?" All of that is networking. Like I say this a lot. I feel like the coding itself is a commodity. Of course, it's important. You can't go into an interview and not know how to code at all and then expect to get
Yeah.
a job as an engineer. But everybody who has made it to that first stage of the interview process can code. So it's like, and it's really subjective to be able to, who can code better than the next person. Like, okay, what you use, like, I don't know, some fancy loop or something like that. Yes, there is a bad way to code. There are bad practices. There are great best practices, but there are a number of great best practices. So if you have two engineers who are using two different best practices, how do you choose which one you're going to hire at your company? It's the person who you feel like you can work the best with, the person who can
Totally.
make decisions, who can lead, who can communicate, who can estimate. And then, particularly as a front end engineer like myself, somebody who can understand what's important to the customer, or understand what should be important, what's important to the business, and how we need to market that or sell that to the customer, because that's going to inform the way that you code. Like, my designer gives me all of these brilliant ideas about what things are going to look like, where things are going to be, but I'm working with her every day, and even down to the implementation details when I'm coding. There are a whole bunch of decisions that I'm making in between the lines that are like, this is what is in the best interest of the customer. So that takes this level of empathy, a level of, like I said, this is the sales stuff that I would work at every day, is
Yeah.
understanding
Totally.
your customer through and through, what they're looking for, and then conveying that through code or how you demo whatever you're building.
What you're saying resonates with me so much, and yet I feel that one still has to advocate to people that that is what being a software engineer is, that is why it's bigger than, as you say, the kind of code details. And I feel like one still has to advocate, and I don't know where this like impression of what a software engineer is even came from, other than what you're describing, like that it's this kind of head down, not talking to people. Like, I don't know where that came from.
It's a
Maybe.
stereotype too. Like, I can even say, because there were, looking back, and hindsight is 2020, looking back on my career, my life, there were so many things that I'm like, oh my goodness, I totally should have seen that I was going to end up being a software engineer, or that I would love coding, and I just didn't. And the big reason why was because I had the stereotype in my head that software engineers are just these like super nerdy, introverted people who like don't talk to each other, just stare at blank screens and like have zeros and ones on the screen that they somehow understand. I was like, that's not me.
Yeah.
I need to talk to people. I need to lead something. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
And
think
that's
it's
okay too, by the way. Like, I like the range of,
mhm,
I totally respect that approach,
yep, yeah,
but
it's good.
it's like one little narrow. Yeah, exactly. I yeah. It's just not. It's not. It's not what Codesmith's been about. It's not what the. I've not. I, I just love seeing when engineering leaders, which there's no getting away from it. Like, that is what you are. You give as in I know you're modest about it, but like that is, giving talks, setting the kind of tone of the industry. It is really powerful when people are setting the tone in that way, that's saying a great engineer is at the center of the work being done, of empathizing with the user. And to me, a bit of me says, and this is just a little my like kind of feelings, is that you tend to get more likely to have that mentality when you've not always been the one wielding software, as like you have it at your fingertips from like 12 years old. You were the person who got it immediately, but you remember like not getting it. You remember being on the outside of it. You remember feeling like maybe tech is something beyond me. So that when you are the one who is suddenly wielding it, you can't help but want to do it in a way that makes others feel more part of it, empathizes with, you say, users more. Like, I love seeing people who've gone through Codesmith who are, and maybe this resonates with you as somebody who's now building software but was previously presumably in sales using software. Like, I love seeing people who specifically have worked in the same field, like they're a teacher or they were a teacher and now they're building software for teachers. That's kind of incredible. But also, even if it's not in the same field, they can't help but like remember software being this mysterious thing they don't get, and now they're the ones building for others with it. And I feel like you need a heck of a lot more of that. Like, it's going to be on every single part of our lives. And if you don't have people building it who remember being the users, then you get, I don't know, the Sam Altman, I don't want to, I'm sure he's world changing, but like he has this thing where he goes, I don't want to be like a insider tech, like true believer, and it's like, yeah, but you are.
Right.
And I don't know. Anyway,
right. No, you're preaching to the choir. Like this is everything that I pretty much stand for. And I get so excited when I'm talking to people who have switched careers or are looking to switch careers. And I feel like they uniquely are qualified to be beyond what that typical, the stereotypical software engineer is, because they have this more well-rounded view of the world. They have views like the teachers who come in, they have a view of what the problems and what the day-to-day lives are of their customers, right? If they're going into building software for teachers. And when I was in sales, I was looking for jobs, I wouldn't, because I learned this the hard way and early on in my career, I wouldn't sign on to a company if I didn't believe in their product. If I couldn't see myself using their product, I wouldn't, because I'm painting this vision for my customers and I'm not even bought into it. And it's going to show. Nobody's going to buy anything from me because I'm not going to be selling it the way that I should sell it. My last thing that I sold when I was in sales was I sold software to salespeople. And our company made the software. So this company is called Sales Loft, and it's a sales engagement software. Made my life so much easier, and I could put myself in those shoes because I was a user of the tool. Then I became an engineer at that company, and I was creating the tools for those people. Yeah, and it was a game changer because people were looking at me, even though I was a newbie in code. So this was how I sold myself on, like, give me this interview because I know your customers better than you do. But even as like a junior engineer, first day, people are looking at me like, okay, Shaundai, can you come into our engineering meetings and explain what our tool does? Because none of the engineers know what we're building. Like we've been building it, and they can put the boxes together and stuff, but they don't really understand the value of it. So yeah, so I'm in the meetings like in my first month, just like selling them, like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're putting together, and this is how salespeople's lives look before it, and this is how salespeople's lives after it. And it's transformational. Yeah, when you actually understand the impact, it's like, oh damn, yeah, I'm making something that's important.
So in a way, it's also like, yeah, I mean, it's inspiring to engineers to join those dots. And I do remember when I first got into software engineering, and I felt like there was there is a tendency sometimes to say, take the features and just do and implement and not think at that level. But when you do, it truly stands out. Okay, by the way, I've got some questions here that
Love it.
Uh, because I've been told to ask for it's something we did talk about, and I would love. How did you get your first speaking engagement?
Oh, this is a great question. Okay, so yeah, okay, so this is part of my networking thing. I joined Twitter because not because I knew there was a tech scene there anyway. That was just it happened and it worked out for the very, very best.
Mm.
I was learning to code in secret while I was selling. And all of my sales colleagues and my customers were on LinkedIn because that's where I would find all my customers. So I was like, I need somewhere to talk about my coding where I don't know anybody. So I was on Twitter. Nobody follows me on Twitter. And I was posting on Twitter and I started using hashtags that I saw like code newbies, code 100 days of code or something like that. Moms who
Oh yeah,
code.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so that I met this we're still friends to this day. We haven't actually met in person. All my friendships are online. Hashim. So met him online. He was one of the first people to tweet at me and be like, "Welcome to the coding world." And
Oh wow.
he was working at Gatsby at the time, and we just like stayed in casual Twitter communication. And then one day he was like, Gatsby is looking for people from diverse, looking for diverse perspectives, but to talk about how they became an engineer. And I was like, I'm not an engineer yet, but I'm down to write a blog post. They were looking for people to write a blog post. And I was like, I can talk about my journey and how I'm trying to get into engineering now and
Right.
some tips that I have for people. I wrote a blog post on that. Gatsby loved it so much. They were like, we're having a conference. Could you speak at our conference, like turn this into a conference talk? And so that was my first conference talk. It was what was it called? Standing out as a non-traditional applicant. So while I was preparing that conference talk, I got my first engineering job. And so it started out as me writing about how I was planning to get the job, and it ended up being me talking about how I did get the job. And so yeah, that was my intro into it. It's still up
That's
somewhere.
incredible.
Yeah.
So what you had unique thing to say, to be
Mm-hmm.
fair, but you also, as in like you truly were unusual to self-teach as a non-traditional applicant into a role. You then had the role, but you also put yourself out there into that. I think quite, you and I talked about how um, I've not given many talks, and people don't invite me to talk. But like the reality is, I don't put myself out there. So how did you find, and of course this is where the sales edge perhaps is part of it, but how did you find the confidence? And let's say to our audience and to people watching these, how can they, how did you overcome the sense that I think a lot of people have that is, I'm not valid
Mm-hmm.
to put myself out there? It's an abiding feeling people have. How the heck did you overcome that? That's the hardest part, perhaps.
It is. It is. And I totally understand it. I hope people take me seriously when I say this because it's not like it's so true, but it's hard to see. You can't see how I feel when I'm doing things. So I get a lot of times people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're such an extrovert," which I don't feel like I am,
Right.
or "You're so confident," and I'm like, in my head, I'm scared. Like I'm scared of everything. Like I'm scared of so much, and I stress about so much. But I what I'm willing to do is do it scared. And so I preach that all the time. Like, and again, I've been practicing this from sales, but it doesn't make it so that you're never scared. You're still
Right.
scared of things. But I remember selling things where I'm selling advisory services to CSOs and CMOs. Advisory services is basically me telling you how to do your job as a CMO, right? Chief Marketing Officer. You don't have any other peers at the company who are like, oh, other CMOs that I can talk to,
Yeah.
right? So I worked for this company that is now owned by Forrester, but it was a competitor to Forrester, so a big like advisory company where they do benchmarking and best practices for CMOs. like all the data. This is what works at these type of companies of this size of in this industry, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm selling to these very tenured marketing and salespeople. I'm selling them on me, 20 something year old, young faced Black woman, why you like how to do your job better. And so you can't go into those scenarios and have like, you can't act like you don't have confidence. You have to establish dominance right away. Before that, I was selling software to literal rocket scientists. NASA was my customer, Blue Origin was my customer, and I'm selling them the software that they're using to build the rovers to get us to the moon and to Mars. And I have to act confident because even though I don't know what I'm doing, even though you have no reason, like me acting all scared is going to make it feel like you don't want to listen to me, or like why would you buy anything from me? So I take in that same metaphorically speaking, and I use a lot of analogies in my head. What I'm doing is I'm just closing my eyes and leaping off of something, and I'm like, whatever happens, the worst thing that I could do is just not try. So I'd rather take a leap. It goes wrong, but I know, like, because I'm not like, these are not life or death scenarios. Like I'm really just applying for a conference. Like it's not that bad. Like life.
speaking at a conference, or but like, who gave? I sometimes like to ask people in naturally, like when I'm talking to like founders, and we haven't talked about the company you founded, but entrepreneurs and anyone who's done something as you have, like beyond. I like to ask them, like, who gave you? This sounds very strange, and forgive me for like, who gave you the permission?
Mm-hmm.
As in, like, somebody at college, a professor was like, who the person who says you can, and I look at like, and my parents often said you can, and if I look at the point of Codesmith, a big part of it is telling people that you can. Like, you can then choose to take different paths, whatever, but that somebody saying you can, like, can I ask who is your you can, or was it a range of people, or was it like maybe a parent, or even, and it sounds silly, but even like your little kiddo, like saying you can?
I think that's such a great question, and I love that because I don't think, I know there were people who told me you can't, but I didn't listen to them. And I do feel like maybe it might have always been something in me. I wrote my college entrance essay on how I could never take no for an answer. It used to drive my mom nuts, but I I didn't hear no as no. I still don't. I hear no as like, if I do something else, maybe I can maybe I can have it. It was reinforced by me figuring out how to get my way. Like if you say no, I'll figure out how to like circumvent it. Never in the interest, like never to hurt anybody or anything like that, but like I've always figured out how to get my way. So I think that's probably just an innate quality of mine, but it's also been reinforced by when I do take these leaps, I might fail, but I always get back up, or I'm successful. And then I just choose to keep on remembering over and over that, like, if I keep on trying, eventually it'll be a yes. So, yeah, that's a great question. I would just say everybody around me. Also, I do have a great support system. Like my family growing up is super supportive. Always.
I was going to say at some point you're going to need to mention your no.
Yeah, exactly.
your mum's like, excuse me. No. I don't know.
That's true.
Like, I don't know, but that's.
I have a great mom. Great parents.
Yeah, I relate. I've got 4 younger sisters, and I feel like, each of us just got this, you can. And the question is whether, you then should. And I think that is one of the things. And I do wrestle with this a bit. And I know we're got some other questions here. So, but I do wrestle with this a bit, just on a, personal level as you describe the paths ahead that you could take, and whether you should, it's like, for me, part of it is like the door's open, but once you've taken that step, then for me, I reached a certain point where it's like I proved I could do that bit. Like I really wanted to get that, like, I wanted to know that I could actually figure out an engineering problem. But then at a certain point, you then want to identify what you do want to do, not necessarily to kind of prove to yourself, but like now you've got the doors open, you can say, hey, what's my kind of passion and my pursuit? And I don't know, just out of interest, maybe, do you have some sense of where that path will take you in the years ahead? Like, are there some pieces of what you do, because you have such a range, and we've barely scratched the surface? Course creation, talks, mentorship, video creation. I saw, with Jason, like literal, highly entertaining content alongside literally being, contributing to performance optimization for Netflix on their UI. Like, you've got, is it the mix that is the like joy for you? Is it going to be starting to focus on a lane? Is it management? You've talked about like that being an almost separate pursuit. We talked about this offline, but almost a separate pursuit. Like, just out of interest, I think people will find it fascinating when you have so many things lined up and so much credibility. I think it can be really interesting for people to realize that that's a wrestling internally still. So like, are you wrestling with that? Is that something that you daily have to think about, or at least every year think about, what are the places you want to dive in further?
Yeah, I have a lot of things to say about this, and I'm trying to think of which part of the answer I want to give. So, because I could go on for days. I've always been the type of person who is into a lot of things that don't necessarily have to do with one another, and it's translated into like separate kind of lives, or I have friends who I go to for this and friends who I go to for that, and then work is a whole separate thing. I feel like tech has been the closest that I've ever been to being able to combine all of that stuff together. So even though my life kind of looks like a suitcase that's been opened up and all the clothes are hanging out and stuff, I'm like, I got it in one suitcase though. So, like, I'm like,
Totally.
it used to be a bunch of suitcases. So yeah, now I feel like everything is related. So this is the first time where I feel like I can do whatever I'm interested in, and it still kind of feeds into work. And so, for example, I'm friends with a lot of people in developer relations because they do a lot of the content creation. I get excited about that just because I'm like, oh, that seems fun, or that was cool what you did. I want to do it too, and I'll just like dabble in it, and then I'll move on to the next thing. But it's all like related to tech, and none of this has.
You've got this anchor, right? Of like,
that's it. Yeah, got the anchor, and then I can just like branch out a little bit and do different things, and then I can come back to my job, which none of this content stuff has to do with my job. But I'm like, I learned stuff that I can take and make myself better at work. So my manager's like, oh, good job, good for you. As long as you get your work done, like that's great. So that's good. But also there is still a need to refine it because I can't do everything, and I have these high ambitions. And I have a good friend, Mark. He goes by Mark Texan, so I'll call him Mark Texan. But we inspire each other and help. At least he helps to keep me on track with a lot of certain things, because I can just, like a squirrel, just kind of go all over the place. And he kind of like checks in with me and is like, where are we at with this one thing that you said you were going to do? So he's great at that. I have another friend, Sia. She's at Spotify. She does a great job of just like, you said this was your goal in the beginning of the year. Wow. I noticed that you've been doing a lot of videos, so congratulations, because I know that was a goal for you. And then follows up like, so what's the next thing? Like, what's the next thing in terms of this goal? So I call it my personal board of directors. It's not people that I've paid or anything like that. It's just like a really good network of solid friendships that, you know, I can come to them about problems. I just moved. So like calling and complaining about, oh, this house thing went wrong, to holding me accountable for my goals. I've just been very lucky to have been able to establish this amazing network of people who are just amazing, solid human beings to help me keep a little bit of focus, but also keep a little bit of fun in my life as well.
Yeah, that's really inspiring, actually. I have at least a friend who's like that, and they hold, you know, accountable. But that having that, I love that phrase, board of directors, and telling. It's funny, just even giving it a label like that gives people permission to think about structuring it for themselves.
For sure.
It's on my list of takeaways. Okay. On that note, then, it may be that that's the answer, but biggest advice to up level one's career. That's a pretty good piece to it, honestly.
Yeah.
But like your biggest advice to, you know, and at different stages in one's career. Let's say for somebody who is thinking about getting into tech, into software engineering, and then, or maybe people who are maybe not at your stage, but like they've got their first software engineering job and they're thinking about how to level up.
Yeah, two pieces of advice. So one is the network. I feel like having a solid network is so important, and it takes time though, and you have to do it naturally. So it's not like, okay, today it's going to be my goal to increase my network, and then you're going to message a bunch of people and schedule coffee chats, and then it's not gonna work. It has to be like organic, over time, natural friendships. Just think friends, like lean into friendships, that it's kind of strategic. I mean, I guess you center around like-minded people, but it doesn't have to be these people are at this company that I want to get to, or at this level that I want to get to. It can just be, honestly, it can be anybody from anywhere, somebody trying to get into tech. My first mentor in tech was somebody who wasn't an engineer yet. He was also in sales, or had just moved from sales into product. So just be open to building friendships, learning more. Yep. There's something that you can learn from everybody. So I say just build your network and see where it goes. And the other piece of advice is, we touched on this earlier, is just to do it scared. So at any point in your career, I'm going to hit 4 years. Wait, what year is this? 4 years? Yeah, 4 years in engineering in a few months. And there's still points in my career where I'm like, I'm scared to do this. I'm scared to make the next thing. But you can't let that fear stop you from making moves, or at least taking a shot, giving it your best shot. So whether you're about to make the move, or just made the move, or getting ready to make the next big career thing, whatever you want, don't let the fear of change, the unknown, don't let that stop you. Because you would hate, not hate, I would hate if you went through your whole life and you look back and there was this one big thing you could have tried and you never know. You're just wondering what if for the rest of your life. Like, I don't know. I can't live like that. I just imagine the two paths. If I had taken the chance, maybe I would have gotten a no. Maybe I would have failed, but at least I scratched the itch. I know why. So I'd always want to go down the path where I tried.
Well, for somebody who has accomplished so much, are there times when you've failed?
Yeah. There are, but
you're more comfortable to share, like, you know, yeah.
It's not that I feel uncomfortable. It's just that I don't think I register them as loss. The same thing as with no's. Like, I just forget about it and I just move on. So I've built a skill. Yeah. I think this is also feeds into my confidence, because I'm like, oh, I can do no wrong, because anytime I do wrong, I just forget about it. I'm like, oh, that never happened. So like, let's move on.
And as it should, and it, like, you know, I think that's one of the things I think for Codesmith alumni, like it's very intimidating. And I think for myself, like with my own choices, one of the things I share with alums is when you talk about networking, for many people, networking is like a space in which you have potentially constant failure, that failure being somebody not getting back to you. Or, worst case scenario, you might even imagine someone's going to go literally, excuse me, why did you reach out to me? Which obviously almost never happens, but like could happen. And I share with people, I often talk about like one of the beauties of reaching out to people, especially where you put thought into it, is it is an intrinsically incredibly hard thing to do. So when you do it, people do really value it and value the effort and time you put into reaching out to somebody. When you do it, having properly come to understand or be intrigued or have, invested in the person. But like people are understandably, I've had some people on my list of folk I want to reach out to for sometimes maybe years.
Yeah.
And one doesn't do it. Like how do you overcome that block? If you're like say we're talking specifically to a Codesmith alum who's like, I want to do my first coffee chat, and as you say, in an organic way is part of it, but they want to do my first coffee chat, but I just cannot overcome that mental block. And I tell people, like, I literally have people on my list, and it's the thing that will stop me until the end of time is the fear of reaching out to people. And as you say, when network is so important, what's the practical approach that someone can take to say, get over it? Because, and I'm asking for a friend /
I got you. All right. So, and this is also making me think that I need to be, because I'm busy, right? So I'm thinking of myself on the other side as the person who gets reached out to now for coffee chats. And I'm busy. And I want to say first, I hope people, if anybody's watching this who has reached out to me and I haven't gotten back to them, like my life it's crazy busy and I have the best of intentions, and I'll sometimes open things and then I'll forget about it because, as you mentioned, I'm involved in so many things. It's not that I'm looking at it and I'm like, who is this? I swear, I'm just like, oh, I'll get back to this, I promise. Or like, oh my gosh, this was such a great message, but I completely forget to respond. And that's all on me. I don't know. I don't know what I need, but like,
it's not a rejection, right? Like when you don't respond.
Yeah. So I hope people understand that if you have reached out to somebody, me included, me for sure. If you have reached out to me and I've said I was going to get back to you, or if I haven't gotten back to you at all, don't take it personal. Please don't take it personal, because people have very busy lives. Now, my advice on how to reach out to people is I will reach out to somebody who I have a connection with already, some type of connection with. So like when I was setting up my coffee chats, when I was first trying to get into engineering, my way of doing it, okay, and this is sales. These are sales skills that I'm going to get you all hip to. So it's better to have a warm outreach than a cold outreach. A cold call is when you're calling somebody who has no idea about you, your company, your industry, or you don't know, like you have no idea. You don't even really know how to pronounce their name. And you're just reaching out to them trying to make a sale. Very transactional, like from the other person's end. It feels very transactional, feels very cold, and that's why it's called cold. And the chances of them saying yes to you or wanting to engage with you are very low, especially in this day and age of spam, and like people are always trying to reach out to people for all kinds of things. So reach out to somebody with that you can have a warm touch. So if it's somebody who, like I said, I was reaching out to, when I was starting out, I was reaching out to people who were at my same company. And the way that I did it was that there was a Slack bot that would every 2 weeks assign you, again, the company's sales loft, and we called each other lofties. So it was coffee with a lofty. So it would set you up with your coffee with a lofty date. And so every 2 weeks it would rotate and set you up automatically with somebody at the company. If it matched me up with somebody in finance, I'm like, hell no, I don't care. So, but if it matched me up with an engineer, I'd be like, all right, cool. Like, let's go to Starbucks. Like, let's figure this out. And, I'm planning it. So, and then I would go off, and there was nothing in my message that was like, oh, let's have a coffee chat. I'm trying to get into engineering. It was all like, hey, where should we get together? I'll plan everything. I'll put it on the calendar. And then when we got there, I'm just being myself, natural conversation. Hey, like, how did you end up at the company? Tell me more about what you do. And then it would go into the whole like, oh, engineering. So yeah, like, tell me about that. And we'd start talking about my projects, and natural. So if you go to like, try going to meetups, or go to places where people are meant to network, go to conferences, go to online conferences, in-person conferences, go to meetups, go to just look at what other people are posting. Like, go to, if somebody is, for example, hosting a podcast or hosting a fireside chat, go in there, be all up in the comments and start stuff. So you want people to start
absolutely
being familiar with your name. Do that gradually, and after a while, you become Twitter mutuals, friends on Twitter, and then asking a couple months from now for a coffee chat is just friend to friend. Like, let's just hang out online, and that's the way to do it. Versus like, I have no idea who you are, and you just sent me a Twitter DM, and how can I get into Netflix? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. And I think one of the biggest adjustments to make is, as you say, like, you talk about being Twitter mutuals, like that is meaningful. Like that takes, and especially as you say, when I often talk to people, like a cover letter was maybe a good indication of your like dedication to match your experience to the job description, and like, but once it's a one-click generation, or once a cold message on email is a one-click, like, generate 1,000, like its whole power goes, because as you were describing, like, people want to talk to somebody who they feel that sense of has invested in that connection a bit. And so it's so on point, but it's also evolving. Like, these are different things to what we're taught in school, which is, write your cover letter and expect that it will follow, and that's it's why it's so vital that, as I say, I look and I follow the videos you do. You say you've done a lot of videos this year, but like, when I watch and see your videos come up, like, it is this practicable advice that you don't learn, I'm afraid, even in the fanciest of schools, as we talked about. Like, you just don't learn what it takes to, as time changes, as things change, communicate. But it's been amazing. Someday it's been like phenomenal advice and practical, implementable things for people in our community. And I will look forward to sharing so much of this with alumni of Codesmith, with folk in the program. And it's super generous of you to give your time to people. Are there any final things you want to share? Because I know you have to go in like 1 minute. So I'm very grateful. Any final things you want to share?
I want to say thank you. Thank you for having me on. This has been such a fun chat. I moved recently, so I've been kind of MIA in general. But this week, I will be getting back to TikTok content and YouTube content. So follow me if you are not already. What is it? Okay, so YouTube, it's at Shaundai, youtube.com/@Shaundai. TikTok is at Shaundai P, because somebody took my first name. I don't know how they did it, but find me on there, or hit me up on Twitter.
And we'll share with all attendees so people can follow and like, subscribe, comment.
All those good things.
It's been beautiful. It's been amazing. Thank you so much, Shaundai. We will end it there and say thank you to everybody in our audience as well. Good day. Cheers.